Alrighty then. See if we can't find the stream. Shouldn't be too far away. Hopefully. Taking a little while for it to load up onto the channel. There it is there. Audio is working as it should, and there's the Twitch chat. That's lovely to see. That's okay. But everything is running as it should be. So, hello everyone, and welcome to round 8 of the AM1 Championship here on Contest of Speed. I'm Lane Everingham, your commentator for this event, and this time we're racing at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit for the British Grand Prix. One of the most historically significant circuits in the world of motorsport. Silverstone was originally an RAF airfield used during the Second World War. It was turned into a racetrack in 1947, and in 1950 it would host the first ever Formula One World Championship race, which was won by the first ever Formula One World Drivers' Champion, Giuseppe Farina. Within the 7 decades between then and now, Silverstone has turned into one of Europe's and one of the world's premier racing facilities. It measures at 3.65 miles and consists of 18 corners and 2 DRS zones that lead down the Wellington Straight into Turn 6 Brooklands and down the Hangar Straight into Turn 15 Stowe Corner. These two areas will prove to be prime overtaking spots during the race, amongst a couple of others such as Turn 3's Village and the Turn 16-17 chicane of Vale. The rest of the circuit, the drivers will have to be mindful of several technical sections, most notably the incredibly fast Copse Corner at Turn 9, and the most famous part of the circuit, the Maggots, Beckett's, Chapel S's, formed by turns 10 through 14. These corners have a very fine margin for error, so a single mistake could prove to be incredibly costly. Being a well-known, well-raced circuit within the league racing community, qualifying tends to be very close and very competitive, and races tend to be quite similar. Speaking of which, as you can see, we have overcast but dry conditions for qualifying, and we should have nice, clear skies for the race, so no wet weather interference here today at Silverstone. Now, before we focus on qualifying, there is a little bit of news to go through first from last week's race in Austria. Only a single incident report involving Game Boy and Saint. A collision, I believe, at Turn 8. The outcome was a 5-second time penalty and 1 penalty point to Saint. But even with the time penalty, Saint wouldn't move position in the final results. He keeps his P3 finish. In the Drivers' Championship, Barmer 22 leading the way, still on 135 points because he didn't race last week. Bruno Diaz is second on 83. Quite a big gap between the top two as it stands right now. So Barmer needs to have some pretty bad races in a row to try and halt his championship charge, because yeah, it's looking quite comfortable at the moment. Vermeer is third on 64, then Verstappen on 56. Artemello is next on 50, then Airborne Tiger on 46. Kitten Petter on 41, Saint on 39, Andy Wu on 24, and rounding out the top 10 is Fortnite Racing on 23 points. In the Constructors, it's a fairly similar talking point with the top of the table. Alfa Romeo are leading on 181, followed by AlphaTauri on 95. Alfa have almost twice the amount of points that AlphaTauri has in P2. It's quite a comfortable lead. Next is Red Bull on 90 points, followed by Mercedes-Benz on 83, then McLaren on 65. Next is Haas on 53, then Ferrari on 34, Alpine on 26, Aston Martin on 21, Williams on 21, and Aston Martin now at the bottom of the table on 20 points. And we got a lot of reserve drivers in for this race as well. Attendance has been quite poor, but we got 16 cars here tonight, which is better than what it has been in the past couple of weeks. We have got VTEC subbing in for P-Dog Payton in the Ferrari, as you can see on screen. Electric Blade subbing in for Fortnite Racing. Case in Your Face subbing in for No Cap in the Williams. Cam Tizzle subbing in for Cos Cameron. Profodes was meant to be racing, but he's currently absent. But he's meant to be driving the AlphaTauri tonight. Shelley the Turtle also absent from the looks of things. He's meant to be reserving for Mercedes-Benz, filling up the vacant seats at Mercedes. One driver who is here is Dream in the Aston Martin. subbing in for Freddy. Fredhead. And that's pretty much it in terms of news. We can now focus on what should hopefully be an entertaining qualifying session. As it stands, Vermu is at the top of the table with a 1 minute 27.614. He's currently 2/10ths clear of Barmer 22, our championship leader, who has got 1,000th of a second over Mitch Burns, who just completed that flying lap. Barman's done a 27.804. Burns has just done a 27.805. So yeah, Silverstone demonstrating its capability during qualifying. It's always incredibly close, as Artemello jumps up to P2 with a 27.673. Electric Blade heading up towards the Vale chicane, turns 16 and 17 on the circuit. Third gear modulating the throttle nicely. Fourth gear, fifth gear, around Club Corner, back onto the main straightaway. And he goes 8th quickest with that time with a 28.9. VTEC has invalidated this lap. In fact, he's found trouble. You can see he's completely destroyed the front end of that car. So he'll have to come back into the pits and get that fixed. Now, Profodes has joined. That's good to see. So that's one extra driver joining in the race, increasing the field size to 17. It appears Case here. No, he is on a flying lap, making his way down towards Stowe Corner. He used a fair bit of his battery already. Entry speeds into turn 14, 204 miles an hour. It's an incredibly fast circuit, Silverstone. Plenty of long straights and plenty of incredibly fast corners. Through the Vale chicane and up towards a very tricky Club Corner, the final corner on the racetrack, and back onto the Hamilton straight. He goes 8th quickest with that time, a 28.8. Dream making his way into Brooklands turn 6, one of the better overtaking spots on the circuit. Then around Luffield turn 7, this long sweeping right-hander that leads back onto the old pit straight on one of the older layouts of Silverstone. Around Woodcote and up towards Copse Corner, turn 9. Incredibly tricky corner to get right. 7th gear there. You can carry heaps of speed around the corner, but if you overdo it by just a little bit, yeah, you can screw yourself over pretty easily, especially with some of the curbs around this track, and also with just how tricky these cars are to drive, especially without assist. Up towards Stowe Corner, turn 14. It'd be interesting to see which of the two areas proves to be a better overtaking spot, Stowe or Brooklands. I tend to see Brooklands as being the better overtaking spot, slightly bigger braking zone into the corner, but the Hangar Straight has a slightly longer DRS zone. So it'll be interesting to see what happens during the race. Hello, Kitten Petter, nice to see you. You're 8th now, no longer P7. Andy Wu out on track. Bruno Diaz out on track as well. Still got a fair few cars yet to set a lap time in this qualifying session. And we're creeping up towards 10 minutes left in quali. Barmer out on track as well. He's making his way around Woodcote up towards Copse Corner. Getting ready to set a flying lap. So yeah, you can see the overcast conditions. There shouldn't be any rain whatsoever. So we don't have to worry about that. What the drivers will have to worry about, though, is the track evolution towards the end of the session. The track will ramp up in terms of pace. So you need to time the end of qualifying well and make sure you get a final run in. Really, really important. As he lets Bruno Diaz by, who is yet to set a lap time. See what, seeing as Bruno's gone in front, we'll ride on board with the Mercedes-Benz driver and give you a guided tour of this 3.5 mile iconic racetrack. Down the Hamilton Straight, up towards turn 1, Abbey. Very fast right-hander here. See, slight modulation of the throttle. You can go flat out through turn 1, just have to be very careful. Into Village, turn 3. Big braking zone into a tight hairpin. Around the loop, turn 4. Short shifting up through the gears, desperately trying to find traction as he goes through Aintree, turn 5. And down the Wellington Straight towards Brooklands, turn 6. Entry speed at 201 miles an hour brings it all the way down to 5th gear, modulating the throttle again in between Brooklands and Luffield, turn 7. Important that you get a nice exit out of Luffield so you can carry as much speed around Woodcote and around the old pit straight. Up towards Copse Corner, turn 9, turning at the 50 board. Slight lift, a hint of understeer. And that actually invalidates his flying lap. That little bit of understeer that he had at the apex has ruined his run. And it seems to be a similar story with Barmer. His run is over as well. Arthur Mello has just begun a flying lap, making his way around turn 3 and up towards turn 4. Vermoo getting ready as well. He's coming around Luffield as I speak. Airborne Tiger making his way around Luffield. Tell you what, we're right on board with Airborne. Complete the tour of the racetrack, and hopefully he doesn't invalidate at turn 9 like we saw with Bruno. Up towards said Copse Corner. Entry speed, see there, 195 miles an hour. A brief shift down to 7th gear just to get the car rotated. Then in short shifts back up to 8. Now into the famous Maggots and Beckett's S's. Coming around turn 12, invalidating at turn 12. Cutting far too much there, and as a result, the slap time is invalid. Case in your face, disqualified from the session, blocking pit lane. He's done that at pit lane entry, according to the mini-map. So that's qualifying over for Case. He's done that at pit entry, interesting. Yeah, you can see this here. The car, did he Grosjean it? Is that what he did? Did he Grosjean? Certainly looked like it. Dream was impeded there. Oh, as Arthur Mello jumps up to the top of the table with a 27.282. Lead Game Boy not on a proper flying lap. He's on an in lap. Mitch Burns is doing a bit of lawn mowing. That is at Luffield. The entry to Luffield, turn 7. As I believe someone's just vaulted up. Who was it? A Ferrari. Must have been VTEC jumping up the order to P7. Andy Wood making his way through the S's of Maggots and Beckett's. He's not on a flying lap. Neither is Vermoo. I'm trying to get one complete lap here. No one's working with me. Saint yet to set a lap time. Making his way out of the loop and around Aintree onto the Wellington Straight. He is using battery. He's heading up towards the first sector split and towards turn 6. Brooklands brings it down to 4th gear. Back on the accelerator. Never reaching to full throttle in between Brooklands and Luffield. Very important detail. It sort of demonstrates how difficult these cars are to drive. In previous titles, you could do that quite easily at the exit of turn 6. You definitely can't do it now. Around Copse Corner. Incredible speed around the right-hander. Apex speed of about 170 miles an hour, which is quite incredible when you think about it. Oh, and he invalidates at turn 12. Incredibly identical to Airborne Tiger a few moments earlier. So just cutting far too much of the curb through that S section, and as a result, it's an invalidated lap for Saint. Bruno getting ready. Dream heading up towards the first sector split. What does the clock say? It says he's up by 1.5 tenths as he goes through turn 6 and up towards turn 7. Brings it down to 3rd gear. And modulating the throttle nicely. Being patient and then gets the full throttle just before he hits the outside curb at the exit of Luffield. Up towards Copse Corner. Entry speed 194. Apex speed at 170 miles an hour. Brings it up to 8th gear as he heads into the famous Maggots and Beckett's S's. Down to 7th gear through 12 rather. Through 13. Through 14. And onto the hangar straight. He's up by half a second. He's found plenty of time in the middle sector. Now just needs to wrap the lap up. He's heading through Stowe Corner, turn 15. And down towards the Vale Chicane, turn 16 and 17. 3rd gear. Hits the first apex well. Hits the second apex at 17. And around Club Corner, the final turn. Back onto the main straight. It's P7 for Dream at the moment with a 27.9. Vermoo has invalidated this flying lap attempt. He'll come back into pit lane. Put on his final set of soft compound tyres. And go out for one last run. Bursey, meanwhile, is up by 3.5 tenths to the first sector. Making his way around Luffield. fifth gear from the Red Bull driver. Nice tidy exit. No oversteer, no understeer from the Red Bull. Up towards Copse Corner. Entry speed 194. Apex speed 171. So that's about right. So a nice run through Copse. Into the Maggots and Beckett's S's. 8th gear, modulating the throttle. 7th gear. Not cutting anywhere near as much curb as we've seen with some of the other drivers. Coming out to Chapel. And he's up by just under 0.4 of a second. Up towards Stowe Corner. Entry speed 203 miles an hour. Brings it down to 136 at the apex of Stowe. And up towards the Vale Chicane. Brings it down to 4th gear. Back on the accelerator. Short shifting to 5th at the exit of the chicane. And around the final turn. Back onto the Hamilton straight. It's P4 for Bursey. Nice lap time. Improving by 0.6 of a second. He said a 1 minute 27.769. Now it's just a waiting game for the final stages of qualifying. We got Kettenpetter on a flying lap making his way through the S's. Now hopefully he doesn't invalidate with me looking at him. He's making his way around Chapel and back onto the Hangar Straight. Takes a very narrow line at the exit of Chapel. Doesn't bother to use the extra road on the right hand side of the circuit. Makes his way around Stowe. Oh, nice run there, using a healthy amount of curb at the exit of Stowe. Into the Vale Chicane, 16 and 17. And up towards Club Corner to complete this flying lap. And Petter will cross the line to set a 28.257. 12th quickest as it stands. He's only a little bit behind Profodes in P11. VTEC getting ready, Game Boy getting ready, Bruno Diaz. It appears that he was on a flying lap, but he's backed out of it. Can't see any damage on the Mercedes-Benz, so he looks okay. He'll just try and save up a little bit of battery and have another go. Barber getting ready. Mitch Burns getting ready as well. Andy Wu making his way around Luffield. Vermeulen heading up towards Stowe Corner. And looking at the time left in the session, it's going to be tough for drivers like Artemello, our current pole sitter. He's just leaving pit lane now, looking at the minimap. I think Arta has run out of time. It's going to be close for Arta. Going to be very close indeed. Basically needs to push right now. Speaking of pushing, Vermeulen beginning what will be his final flying lap in this qualifying session at Silverstone. Around turn 2, heading up towards Village, turn 3. Brings it down to 3rd gear. Gets back on the accelerator. Oh, he loses control! He lost control of the car at the exit of Village. Got too heavy on the gas. The back end stepped away. His qualifying session is over. Andy Wu making... Oh, hello. Yellows are out. As Bruno Diaz retires from the session. We've got Airborne Tiger off the circuit there. Interesting. Cam's retired as well. He's done that in the pit lane. And a Ferrari lost it as well. Must have been Mitch Burns. Spinning! Game Boy at Club. Mitch Burns, same area. What have these two done? What a peculiar sight. There's an Alpine crossing the line. It's Electric Blade who jumps up to P9 with a 28 flat. Andy Wu's making his way up towards the first sector split. The clock says for Andy, he is down by 1/10 of a second. Vermeulen making his way out of Chapel, up towards the second sector split. Yeah, his session is over. Artemello crosses the line. He just about makes it to set one final flying lap in this qualifying session. Barber, meanwhile, is up by 3.5 tenths, but he goes into the gravel track. What is going on out here? Got guys ducking off the road, quitting on their flying laps. What's going on? Andy Wu's up by 1,000th of a second. Hey, look, Barber just sitting there. He's going to get himself disqualified is what he's going to do. VTEC's just jumped up. Electric Blade. Yeah, there we go. He just got himself disqualified. Don't get it. Saint jumps up to P3 with a 27.6. Artemello's up by 0.06 of a second through the first sector. Makes his way out of Copse Corner towards the S's of Maggots and Beckett's. 8th gear down to 7th gear. Through turn 12 into turn 13. cuts plenty of 13, but somehow doesn't invalidate as he goes through Chapel and back onto the hangar straight away. Up towards Stowe Corner, 8th gear, 204 miles an hour, brings it down to 136. Oh, loses the back end briefly, but catches it beautifully as he heads into the Vale chicane, 3rd gear. Keeps it in 3rd, then short shifts at the apex of turn 17, around the final corner, crossing the line. It's a 27 flat from Artemello. And that will cement his spot at the top of the table. He will take pole position here at Silverstone, and by a fairly healthy margin. Alrighty. Just be waiting on Mitch Burns to retire his Ferrari. But minus Arthur, you can see how incredibly close it is. Like, Vermouth down to Mitch Burns is 2/10. If you add a few extra hundredths, you can include Bruno Diaz in P8. So you got 7 cars that are separated by merely 2/10 of a second. It is insanely close. It is incredible how close it can be during qualifying. How many leagues do I commentate? At the moment, only 2. I do another league called Racespec, but I do 3 separate tiers on 3 different days. So, in terms of streams, I do 4 a week. Now, going through the qualifying results, Artemello starts from pole position, out-qualifying his nearest rival by half a second in P2, then Saint P3, then Andy Wu. Bursey, nice from him, P5, VTEC P6, then Mitch Burns. Both Ferraris in the top 10, then Bruno, then Dream, then Electric Blade rounds out the top 10. Then we have Preferreds, Kitten Petta, Game Boy, Ken Tizzle, and neither Alfa Romeo is setting a lap time at the end of qualifying, and Case, I think Grosjean did at pit exit. So he was disqualified like Barmer, but with Barmer, it was quite intentional. He wants to start from the back. But no, I've commentated with a few leagues before, Gibby man. There used to be a period of time where I did 9 streams a week. That was quite a handful. But doing 4, it's a lot more manageable, as you could imagine. So, yeah, I could see that happening. Someone from the back just getting a sneaky top 5. That can happen here at Silverstone. Trouble is, with one of the characteristics of this place, because of how close it is between everyone, like everyone knows this place pretty well. It's either used as a test track for pre-season stuff, and it's basically included on every calendar in every series ever when it comes to F1 games. So everyone knows this track pretty well. Because of the incredible sort of competition between all the drivers, you tend to see DRS trains forming quite quickly. And if you're stuck in the middle of those DRS trains, it's incredibly tough to pass. You do need a bit of luck to go your way if you're starting from the back, making your way forward. Either that or you need to be either Michael Schumacher or Ayrton Senna, and you're basically sending it into every corner where you have a window of opportunity. If you're that good, then absolutely, it's very easy to pass around here. But if you're stuck in a DRS train, yeah, it's going to be tough to move forward. Now, there's a counter, so we're getting close to the start of the formation lap. It'll be interesting to see what the drivers do in terms of strategy. I can see in the garages there's a couple of hard tyres I can see. Can't see any medium rubber, so I'm guessing, a wild guess, quite a few drivers will be starting on the mediums. I suppose we'll find out in a few moments' time. Alrighty. So, drivers set off on their formation lap. That's very weird audio to get. There are so many bugs in this game. The audio did not match the camera angle at all. Ooh. Ooh. Okay. Interesting. Alright, so Artemello starting from pole position. He's starting on the medium tyre. Vermoo doing the same, then Saint. All three drivers starting on the mediums. Andy Wu was starting on the soft compound tyre in P4. Interesting. Burzy and VTEC, they're starting on the hard tyre in P5 and 6. Mitch Burns is starting on the medium, so we've got alternate strategies happening for the Ferrari team. Bruno starting on the mediums, Dream starting on the medium, same with Electric Blade. Profodes is the other driver who is starting on the soft tyre in P11. Behind him is Kitten Petter and Elite Game Boy. Both drivers are starting on the hard tyre. Cam starting on the mediums. Airborne Tiger, Barmer and Case in Your Face, they're all starting on the hard. So we got, what's that, 7 drivers on the hard tyre, 2 drivers on the softs, and we got, I think, 8 on the mediums? 8, 7, 2. Huh. Interesting. Interesting. This grid is more mixed up when it comes to the strategy than I thought it was going to be. But then again, I just come off a week of doing Singapore, and with Singapore, everyone starts on the hard tyre. They don't start on any other tyre. Everyone, and I mean everyone, started on the hard tyre at Singapore. So, no, this is quite refreshing, seeing a wide diversity when it comes to strategy. Really cool to see. An adult Happy Meal. I don't think they do, Gibby Man. Definitely a kid's Happy Meal. I don't think they have an adult one, unfortunately. Alrighty, all of the cars are lined up ready to race. We got 5 red lights and we are underway here at Silverstone. It's a nice start from Artemello. He covers Vermoo down towards Abbey and he'll lead the field around turn 1. Andy Wu in P3, followed by Saint, Dream and Bruno Diaz up towards Village. Oh, spinning! Oh, and Andy doesn't catch it. He loses control. Contact! More contact at Village. Oh dear. A Ferrari cutting the track, colliding again. More collisions of spinning Aston Martin as well. Dream has spun down to the bottom of the order. What a dramatic opening lap here at Silverstone. Down towards Brooklands we go. Kitten Petter's had a nice start. So has Airborne Tiger. He's battling his teammate as Preferreds is held up through Luffield. Coming around turn 7 onto the old pitch straight towards Woodcote. Electric Blade on the back of Airborne Tiger, unable to find a way past. My goodness. Incredible drama at turns 3 and 4. It's a pity we didn't get a wider shot. The camera was so zoomed in. Yeah, Andy Wu was sort of at the centre of it. So was Dream as well in the Aston Martin. Both drivers completely shafted at the start. We switch it to position change. You can see Dream down 7. Andy Wu down 13 places. Coming around turn 18 and onto the main straightaway. Half a second separating the top 2 as it stands. Saint hanging on to P3. Bruno Diaz hovering at the back of the train as well. So we've got a 4-car train at the front. Something's happened to Kitten Petter. He's been overtaken by Airborne Tiger. Oh, something's happened to Artemello. He's dropped down to P2. Vermoo has just taken the lead. Coming around Aintree onto the Wellington Straight. Vermoo pulling away here. 6.5 tenths between Vermoo and Artemello. Yellow flags are out again. It's Cam Tizzle in the Alpine. Spinning out and dropping behind both Dream and Andy Wu. Profodes is in the pits. That does explain why he was quite slow around Luffield, as Andy Wu passes down the inside of Dream here into P14. I'm really not a fan of these. This is a nice camera angle. Oh, running wide is Artemello. But I've noticed here at Silverstone, some of these cameras are really zoomed in. No need for them to be so zoomed in. Coming out to Chapel onto the hangar straight. Vermoo, he hasn't been able to pull away from Artemello, but Artemello hasn't gained any ground on the race leader. So whatever happened through turns 3 and 4, He really balked Artemella. He had a fantastic start. And now he's dropped behind Vermouth. Has to do the chasing. It's now the start of lap 3 of 26 here at Silverstone. DRS is now enabled. And obviously you can use it when you're within 1 second of the car in front and in the DRS zone. And, oh, hello, yellows are out again. It's Case in your face, I believe it is. He has spun at the exit of Vale and dropped down to P17. Artemella, he'll have an opportunity here to try and attack the move. He gets a nice run. Not bothering to use any not bothering to use any ERS down that straightaway. So he doesn't want to attack the move just yet. Just wants to follow. That is Airborne Tiger spinning out at turn 5. Gets pointed back in the right direction. And Cam has spun as well at the exit of turn 4. Plenty of drivers losing control at the beginning of the race. Hopefully they'll be able to find a rhythm. As Airborne Tiger makes another mistake. That is at Brooklands and drops down to P15. Nice start from championship leader Barber. He intentionally disqualified himself to start from the back. He's now in the middle of the pack. He's now P8, moving up 8 positions from his starting place in P16. Up towards the Vale chicane, 4/10 separating the top 2 now. So we definitely got a top 4 forming with Vermouth, Arta, Saint and Bruno. It's 3-second gap back to VTEC. So, yeah, it's going to be tough for those behind VTEC to catch up to these top 4. Unless, of course, we have a safety car at some point. Into Village, turn 3. Big braking zone here. Potential overtaking spot as they head into turn 4, the loop. It's a corner where you need a lot of patience. You can't get on the throttle too soon. Otherwise, you can lose control of the car like that. And lose time. Prefers having a moment at Chapel. Cutting plenty of the racetrack there, Arta. Notice that. At turn 6. Used plenty of the inside curb. Heading around Woodcote. Down the old pit straight towards Copse Corner. 4/10 separating these two. Now, if Arta, if he wants to make an overtake, he needs a nice run through Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel. But I think at this stage of the race, he's not particularly concerned about battling Vermouth. Using a bit of battery, does it? Yeah, he only uses a little bit. If he was trying to attack Vermouth, he'll be using a lot more battery. Yellow flags are out, it's Bursey. Having a moment at Chapel. And he's now down in 9th position. Make that 10th now as Kitten Petter gets by on the Hanger Straight. It's probably the most demanding part of the entire racetrack from Copse Corner coming out of Chapel, turn 14. It's so easy to lose control of the car through there. Very easy to gather warnings through there as well, as we saw during qualifying. Quite a few drivers cutting too much of the curb. And I imagine a few drivers ran a bit too wide at Copse Corner. That's incredibly easy to do at Copse. Down the Wellington Straight towards Brooklands. Vermouth weaving. He doesn't like Arta being that close. He is 3/10 behind. Saint hovering behind as well in P3. Bruno Diaz not too far behind as well. Just watching along in P4, waiting for his moment to strike. Up towards Cobb's Corner. Nice and tidy. Cam has had a spin again at turn 4. Having a hard time with his Alpine at the moment. Around Chapel. Back onto the Hanger Straight. Artemello closing in, but not by enough to attack Vermouth. Just to increase the pressure. Yellows are out, it's Airborne Tiger spinning. That's at turn 7. Luffield. Oh, deep under brakes. He almost goes into the back of Vermouth. That was very close indeed at turn 16. But Arta managed to pull the car up just in time to avoid a collision. Through Abbey. Into turn 2. As Barmer sets a new fastest lap of 31.2. And he's on the hard tyre, as you can see on the leaderboard. So the hard tyre is starting to switch on. Around Aintree, turn 5, and onto the Wellington Straight. DRS open again for Arthur. No weaving from Vermeulen. Yellows are out. It's Case having a moment at club. As Airborne Tiger gets a 3-second time penalty. I think he did that at Stowe, running wide at Stowe. And he retires in pit lane. He's had enough for the day. Up towards Cops Corner, turn 9. 4-10 separating the top two. Arthur, running right up against the white line at the exits of turn 9. Through the S's, through Maggots and Beckett's. Around turn 13, you could see there, Vermeulen was able to hit the apex at 13 quite well. Arthur missed the apex by just under a metre or so. Heading up towards Stowe Corner. Bruno on the attack. Saint demoted down to P. Moment there from Bruno, losing control of the car. I'm not sure if he and Saint maybe made contact, but Bruno's now up into P3. My guess of what happened is that Saint lost DRS to the top two, and Bruno managed to get by. That would be my guess. Yeah, Bruno had a small moment coming out of Stowe, and it's cost them a little bit of time to the top two. Vermeulen and Arthur need to get the hammer down, try and build up a gap. Oh, but Arthur has a moment at the loop. He loses control of the car, and he's now 1.5 seconds behind the race leader. He got on the throttle too soon coming out of the loop. Lost the back end, but he caught it. Prevented the car from spinning. Yellows are out again. It's Electric Blade spinning out at the exit of turn 4. The loop proving to be a difficult traction zone. It's definitely going to be... Oh, and Case has had a moment as well at turn 4 once again. So yeah, the exit at turn 4 is proving to be an incredibly tricky traction zone. Gonna have to make some notes about that. One of the hot spots to keep an eye out for. Turn 4. Now Artemello, he's closed the gap to the race leader. It's now 1.1 seconds. You can see 43% battery Vermeulen has. Yellows are out again. It is, I believe, Cam Tizzle spinning. See, Arthur has plenty of battery as well. So does Bruno. Saint has used all of his. Pretty much out of battery. Barmer, new fastest lap, 30.6. And he's closing in on VTEC. So the battle's on for P5. Yellows are out again. It's Bursey spinning at the final turn. And then you can tell from the tyre marks, he's actually end up in the barrier. Has he got damage from that? Oh, and he... Oh, Jesus. He gets a 10-second time penalty for his accident. No obvious damage from the Red Bull from what I could see. Yeah, his car looks okay. But you can tell from the tyre marks, through the gravel trap, he actually ended up in the barrier. Now, Bruno's lost time to the top two. Gap now 1.4 seconds. So maybe he made a mistake through the opening sector. Artemello is now 4/10 behind Vermeulen. The battle is back on at the front. Through the S's of Maggots and Beckett's. Around turn 13 and around Chapel. Turn 14 and back onto the hangar straight. 4.5 tenths separating the top two as they head down towards Stowe Corner. Arthur not attacking just yet. He is biding his time, waiting for his moment to strike. Barmer closing in on Mitch Burns. The battle is on for P5. VTEC behind now in P7. The rest of the field is pretty well spread out now. Quite surprising to see here at Silverstone. You tend to see a lot of this going on. See sort of tightly packed trains. Bruno, he's got a bit of work to do to catch up, but he's very much capable of catching up. He's definitely got the speed. Now, Andy Wu's come into the pits. Dream has copped a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. Down the Wellington Straight towards Brooklands. Arthur not quite close enough to attack just yet. And I imagine we're going to have a battle on for P5. as Barmer is chipping away at the gap. He'll get within DRS range very, very shortly. Around Copse Corner, Vermoo and Arta. Bruno just following behind. Saint losing a little bit of ground to Bruno. The gap is 9/10 between those two cars. Saint needs to stay within that 1 second range. He cannot afford to lose DRS here. Arta again close, but I don't think he'll be going for any sort of move. A spin again. Who is it? It's Cam Tizzle having a moment at the entry of turn 4, according to the minimap. Deep under brakes again. Ho ho. Arta, plenty of confidence heading into Vale. Oh, and losing the back end there at Club. Caught it beautifully though. He's fully committed here on the attack. Heading around turn 2, up towards turn 3. 3.5 tenths separating the top two. A slight lock up there from Vermoo. 3-second time penalty for casing your face for multiple warnings. You see Vermoo, a lovely exit out of turn 4, building up a few extra tenths between him and Arta. Arta closes the gap though with DRS as they head around Brooklands and into the right-hander of Luffield. Third gear. Does he short shift? Yes, he does. Does he short shift again? No. Uses all of fourth gear. Mitch Burns, he's got Barmer right behind him. Those hard tyres have definitely switched on. It's a nice run out of Luffield around Woodcote. You can see the Ferrari pulling away just ever so slightly as they head into Copse Corner. Tidy run from both drivers there. Zartamello, he's going to plan an attack here. Opens DRS, switches on the battery and doesn't switch it off. He's going for it here. Down the inside, heading towards Stowe Corner, and he's through into the race lead. A tidy move. And Vermoo, he didn't put up any sort of resistance there. Into the pits he goes. He blinks. He's going to go into the pits for a set of hard tyres. Barmer is overtaking Mitch Burns as well at Stowe Corner. So he's into P5. Saint has gone into the pits too. Coming around Club Corner now. Barmer will overtake both Vermoo and Saint. He'll move himself up to P3. It'll be interesting to see how this alternate strategy works compared to those on the conventional medium-hard strategy. Dream a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Very easy to do here at Silverstone. You've got to remember the speed limit here at Silverstone is 60 kilometers an hour. Or in Queen's English, or King's English rather now, it's 37 miles an hour. So you got to brake quite hard for pit entry. Heading around Luffield. Mitch, all that he can really do in this particular scenario is just stick with Barmer if he can. Make the most of these old medium compound tyres by using DRS given from the car in front. Barmer, well, he's got clear air and he's still got pretty good tyres. So he needs to push, and he knows that. Through the S's. Around Chapel. You can see Mitch still within that 1 second range, so he will get DRS. Will the leaders respond? The answer is yes. The top two into pit lane for a change of tyres. Pull up, pull up, pull up. Oh, and he missed out by a mile an hour. I saw it there briefly. He crossed the line at 38 miles an hour. He got pinged only just. Oh dear, oh dear. He got that thing pretty well pulled up, but he just sped. Only just. Yellows were out as well at the final corner. Not sure what that was all about. Everyone's still running pretty well. So where's Vermoo? Where's Saint? Top two are still in the pit lane. Has the undercut not worked? It doesn't appear to have worked, you know. Here comes Bruno out of the pits. Vermoo is behind Bruno. The undercut has not worked at all. Though, of course, those two drivers, Arta and Bruno, they need to get their tyres up to temperature. Vermoo, meanwhile, definitely has his tyres up to temperature. Here we go, on the attack. down the inside towards Brooklands. Not much Bruno can do about this. Vermouth's into 7th position. Around Luffield, turn 7. He has to close up a 1.6 second gap to the car in front. That being Artemello. Around Woodcote, up towards Copse Corner. Now 1.4 seconds. Those tyres, though, on Artemello's car, they'll be feeling better. They'll be feeling up to temperature. Around turn 13, around turn 14. Back onto the hangar straight. So yeah, that undercut really didn't work at all. That overcut appeared to have gained quite a bit of time. Down towards the Vale chicane. The gap now 1.3 seconds between Artemello and Vermouth. But critically, the other Red Bull is starting to get involved. Bursey in P5, yet to make a pit stop, is only 1.2 seconds in front of Arta as they head into the village hairpin. Interesting. I wonder how Bursey will play a factor in this battle between Arta and Vermouth as Electric Blade pits in to get off the medium compound tyre. Behind these two, we have Bruno in P8. Super unfortunate he got a time penalty from that. He just about pulled it up, but he missed out by about a mile an hour. And, yeah, unfortunately, he can't get away with that. Speeding, I suppose. He has to deal with that 5-second time penalty. Artemello is now within a second of Bursey. Now, look, you can understand from a Red Bull point of view, Bursey probably in his best interest to try and hold up Artemello if he can, but we know how much pace this guy has at the moment. Put the car in pole position by quite some margin at the end of qualifying, so we know he's got fantastic pace here. We saw as well Vermouth, Bruno and Saint, they stuck with him on those opening laps, and Vermouth, he's still about a second and a half behind Arta. Heading around Club Corner and onto the Hamilton Straight towards turn 1. The gap now 7/10 of a second between these two. Battle is on as well between a couple of other cars. Dream and Preferred's around the outside. Nice move there with the help of DRS. He's into P13. Let's see, it's Saint. Saint has lost out big time. 2.3 seconds behind Bruno. That undercut really did not work at all. He's now in a really tough position because he's also got no battery, as you can see from the telemetry. So yeah, Saint is pretty screwed at this point. He can't really fight for the top 3 places, which are provisionally Artemello. Who was that? Cam? It is Cam. He was getting out of the way. Nicely done there. Just trying to pull the car up off to the side of the racetrack and let everyone through. It's very courteous of him. Alright, can Bursey do anything in this scenario? Not really. Arta's got a lot of pace, and he's close enough to just drive by him with battery and DRS. Yellow flags are out, though. It's casing your face spinning at turn 7. We got Barmer into the pits. Race leader is in, and down the inside goes Artemello. Bursey gets a nice run at the apex of Stowe. Can he attack into Vale? The answer is no. He's unable to counter-attack to try and get back the position. So Game Boy and Barmer in the pits for a set of medium compound tyres. There goes Artemello. There goes Vermouth. Then Bruno. Then Saint. Next car will be Game Boy. Oh, sorry, Mitch Burns, rather, on track. Mixed up the Williams cars. There's Mitch Burns. Yellows are out. Appears to be a car just getting off to the side of the circuit. Appears to be Cam. Again, just moving out of the way. Trying to find a little bit of racetrack where he can just do his own thing. Vermouth closing in bit by bit. Vermouth would like to get by Bursey as soon as possible. This guy will be an interesting driver to keep an eye on in these final 11 and a bit laps in this race. He's going to have a lot of pace on those tyres. He's got a lot of work to do to catch up to the cars in front. The car in front of him, the next car in front of him is Saint, and he has to close a gap of 4.5 seconds. VTEC's in, Kittenpetter is in. So Artemello will resume the lead of this race at the beginning of lap 16 of 26, which he just begins right now. We have got 11 laps to go here at Silverstone. The top two are separated now by 2.1 seconds. Bruno in P3, then Saint. Got VTEC and Kittenpetter coming out of the pits. Barber will move up to P5. And he has his sights set on the top four. The first target is Saint in the AlphaTauri. Mitch Burns will come out in front of Elite Game Boy, in front of VTEC, the two McLarens as well. Andy Wu getting by Burzy, who is still coming out of the pits. Really demonstrates how long that pit lane is. It is seriously long. Yellows are out again, I think with Cam pulling off to the side of the racetrack once more, trying to get out of the way. You can see the gaps are pretty big now. Not a single DRS train anywhere, as Cam's actually crashed, I think. We have a virtual safety car. A VSC. He somehow lost it through here. Can't see any debris. That's peculiar. So Cam, out of the race, we're down to 15 cars. We just started lap 17. We have got 10 laps to sort this out. Now, drivers do have to be incredibly careful of the Delta. The VSC Delta in this game, as a lot of drivers would probably know, is incredibly broken. So you need to be incredibly careful while managing the Delta. Oh, I see, Cam. Unlucky, mate. League Game Boy, a 3-second time penalty, multiple warnings. And no one's got a drive-through. Well done, everybody. Nobody got a drive-through penalty for speeding. Tends to be quite a common thing to see in F1 22, where the Delta just sort of screws people over. Yeah. It doesn't help, Cam, that these cars are quite difficult to drive, no assist as well. They're so finicky under acceleration. You have to be so very, very careful with the car. And you weren't the only one who was struggling. There were quite a few drivers who had moments here and there. So, yeah, everyone's feeling the pain of these cars around this circuit. Around Stowe Corner. It is a bit. Givey, it is a bit. Down the main straightaway, 2.5 seconds separating the top two still. It's going to be tough for Vermood to catch up. We saw the pace Arta had in qualifying. And at this stage of the race, both drivers know they just need to push. Arta needs to push to try and build a gap. Vermood needs to push to try and close the gap. So these two will essentially be setting qualifying times throughout the rest of this race to try and, you know, do what they need to do. Bruno stuck in P3. He hasn't built a big enough gap to cover off Saint thanks to the time penalty as Burzy gets fastest lap. Barmer's closed to within 2 seconds of Saint, so he hasn't closed in at the rapid rate I thought he was going to close in. But he is closing in, regardless. So we're going to have a battle for P4, and if Barmer can overtake Saint, there's a really high chance that he'll get P3 thanks to the penalty that Bruno has. And I don't... Oh, gee whiz. How did you catch that? See, if I did something like that, I'd spin. I'd spin and I'd crash into a barrier looking like a complete fool, but These aliens can catch a car going at 170 miles an hour. Come on. How do you catch that? In this game, of all things. Yellows are out again. It's Game Boy. Oh, and he's probably spun it too. And I think he's taken out a polystyrene board while he's at it. I think. He hasn't damaged his car, but he's now down to 12th position outside of the points. It was looking like a points finish for Game Boy. Doesn't look like it anymore unless, of course, a magical safety car makes its appearance. But at this stage of the race, I find it incredibly unlikely that it's going to come out. There's Andy Wu, his Preferreds and Bursey battling for the final point scoring spot in P10. Barmer's now within a second of Saint. 8/10 separating these two. Heading around Luffield. Third gear, short shifting to fourth. And on to the old pitch straight around Woodcote. Elite Latifi. Well, Gibby man, in order for him to be Elite Latifi, he had to be outside of the points to begin with before his spin. That's a very mean thing to say. Sorry, Latifi. Not gonna lie, I do feel a bit gutted for him. Because he's ultimately going to lose out on his childhood dream of racing in Formula 1, right? As Barmer's going to go around the outside of Saint before Stowe. In absolute fairness, he's had 3 years to try and prove himself. And he hasn't really done that within those 3 years. But what I really feel bad for him about is the level of nonsense he's copped on social media from just about everybody. I just hope he has a very, very solid sort of mental fortitude. Because, yeah, the amount of incredibly rude comments and just the hate that's being directed towards Nicholas is quite insane. So I just hope mentally he's okay. That's all I hope for. But, yeah, it seems that his time in Formula 1 will more than likely come to an end at the end of this year. So he may suck, Gibby, but I'm pretty certain that he's more talented than myself, yourself, and a lot of other people in this tier combined. So I mean, it's easy for us to say that he sucks while we're sitting on our couches playing pretend race cars. So let's see here. Bursey, 3-second time penalty. Andy Wu closing in on VTEC. We might have a battle on for P8. Saint, yeah, his battle with Barmer is pretty much out. He doesn't have enough battery to try and attack Barmer, so I think that's it. The most he can hope for is P4 if he can stay within 5 seconds of Bruno. So onto the main straightaway, the Hamilton Straight, as it's called. We've got 6 laps to go in this race. We've got yellow flags out as well. Electric blade it is. Slowing down, trying to let cars through. And now we'll be able to go. Artemello holding his own out in front, doing a very nice job indeed. 2.4 seconds still separating him and Vermouth. Vermouth just unable to make any inroads on the race leader. He's just sort of stuck. The most he can hope for is second, I think, at this point. Artemello, he looks in fine form. He's made a few errors here and there, but every time he's made an error, he's recovered quite well. So he's willing to push to the limit and just allowing his natural skill to try and bail him out of situations. And it's working quite well. Vermouth just hasn't really had a response to the pace of Arta at the moment. Up towards Stowe Corner. Vermouth has chopped down the gap by a tenth or so. Maybe a tenth and a bit. But, yeah. I don't think these two will be battling anytime soon. Barmer pulling away from Saint. Hasn't been able to close in too much on Bruno, even on the fresher tyre. Those medium tyres just feeling the burn, and he's not quite getting the pace out of them. He's finding a few tenths. He's not finding enough time to try and really challenge Bruno at this stage of the race. Maybe on the last lap, maybe on the second last lap, he'll put himself in a position where he can try and fight. I'm not sure if he really wants to. He could just let the 5-second penalty do all the talking. Be a lot easier. A lot less risky. So, be interesting to see what happens if Barmer is able to catch up. VTech holding his own in P8. Half a second separating him and Andy Wu. League Game Boy and Bursey battling as well. Heading into the village hairpin. Yellows are out again. It's a car slowing down. Get out the penalty. Bursey, gee whiz. Well, of course, he got that 10-second time penalty for having an accident. That's right. The game gave him a 10-second time penalty, so... And he's got 16 seconds next to his name. Andy Wu running low on battery. VTech has got a little bit in reserve. So the battle is still on between these two. And this is for points. Through the Maggots and Beckett's S's. Just that Andy, he needs to try and save up a little bit of battery. Try and create a pass towards the end of the race. Because with the battery he's got right now, he's not really gaining anything on VTech. VTech is just holding his own in P8 at the moment. So Andy needs to try and save up a little bit of battery. Try and close in with the natural pace of the car if he can. And then try and create some sort of overtake towards the end of the race. Barmer still closing in just little by little. Here and there. It's now 1.6 seconds between him and Bruno. Vermoo, meanwhile, has lost time to Arthur. It's now 3.1 seconds between the top two. I think his chance for a win is now pretty much done. Unless we have a safety car now or on the next lap. But I don't think we'll be seeing one. VTech, Andy's still using a fair bit of his battery, trying to close the gap. He's not getting enough momentum to try and really challenge VTech, but he's found time here. He's now on the back of VTech. Got a nice run through Cops. Now he needs a nice run through Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel. Here we go. Cutting way too much there. That was a warning. Through turn 12, around turn 13. Oh, and he straightens the car out through Chapel. He must have felt he lost control of the car through the left-hander. Or rather, through the right-hander of turn 13. So he had to straighten the car out at turn 14. Stop him from spinning. Though it looked like from his onboard, the car looked pretty stable. So maybe it was a little overreaction, I'm not sure. I could only tell from what I can see, not from what I can feel from the car. Onto the main straightaway, Bursey closing in. Up towards Abbey, turn 1. And that's a penalty, yeah, you can tell from the onboard he cut quite a lot there at turn 1. Cut too much, in fact. As Electric Blade gets a fastest lap. 1 minute 29.7 from him. Here comes Bursey, DRS open. Not bothering to use any battery though to try and pass Game Boy. It is for a non-point scoring play, so the battle is purely about pride rather than for points. Bruno's closed in a little bit on Vermoo. Barmer hasn't really closed in on Bruno, so... yeah. I think Barmer's tyres, those medium compound tyres, have now seen better days. And they just don't have the performance like they had a few moments ago. A few laps ago, I should say. 1.1 seconds separating Vermoo and Bruno as they head into the hairpin of Village and into turn 4's the loop. 1 second now separating the two cars. And onto the Wellington Straight he goes towards Brooklands. There's not really much that Bruno can do in this battle. I mean, he could try and argue the 5-second time penalty. But, yeah, I don't know. With speeding penalties, they tend to be pretty clear-cut. So even if he can try and battle Vermeulen for position, I don't think he'll be getting that 5-second penalty removed. Barmer's now closed the gap some more. It's now 1.3 seconds, so maybe those tyres haven't seen better days. Maybe he just had a poor lap. Because, yeah, he's definitely gaining now. He's almost within a second of Bruno. Got a few corners left on this lap for Arta. The Vale chicane, turns 16 and 17. And then the final corner, turn 18. Arta will finish lap 25 and begin the final lap. Lap 26 of 26 here at Silverstone. He's got a very comfortable margin in hand. 4.1 seconds over Vermeulen. He does not need to drive hard at all. Just needs to drive nice and sensibly and get the car to the checkered flag. Vermeulen holding second. 9.5 tenths separating him and Bruno. So Bruno now has DRS. If only he didn't have that 5-second time penalty, it might have been an interesting battle for P2. Unfortunately, it's not to be. I'd have loved him for the final time. Around Woodcote and onto the old pit straight. Yellow flags are out as well. Just briefly there. A few more corners for Artemello, who was driven quite well today at Silverstone. Put the car on pole position by no less than half a second. And he's driven a pretty faultless race. A couple of mistakes here and there, but he's kept it together when it mattered the most. 3 corners remain for the Haas driver. Through the Vale chicane. And heading up towards Club Corner. He's gone from pole position to victory lane. Artemello will win the British Grand Prix. And this will be victory number 2 for the Haas driver. The first time since the Bahrain Grand Prix back in round 2. Vermeulen will end up finishing in second position. Barmer 22 will complete the podium in third, followed by Bruno Diaz, Saint, Mitch Burns, Kitten Petter. VTEC will hang on to P8 as well. They head on to the main straight once again. Bursey, he'll cross the line in 10th, but he'll be demoted quite a bit down the order. It'll be Elite Game Boy who completes the top 10 provisionally, of course. Outside of those positions, Dream now vaults up to P11. Profodes, he vaults up as well thanks to his time penalties. There we are. The end of a long race here at Silverstone. Barmer given driver of the day, which is absolutely no surprise. But no, a fine drive from this man on screen. As I mentioned, it's the first time he's won a race in AM1 since his debut at the Bahrain Grand Prix. He's put together a very fine drive and fully deserves the win. Vermeulen will take home a very creditable P2. And Barmer, our championship leader, electing to start from the back, will end up finishing on the podium in P3. So, the unofficial results of the British Grand Prix. Artemello is your race winner by 4.8 seconds over Vermeulen in P2. Barmer coming up from 16th on the grid to finish on the podium in 3rd. Bruno Diaz in 4th, followed by Saint, rounding out the top 5. Mitch Burns is next in P6, followed by Kitten Petter in 7th. Nice drive to come up from 12th. VTEC 8th, Andy Wu in 9th, and Elite Game Boy will round out the top 10. Profodes is next in P11, followed by Dream, Bursey, Case in Your Face, Electric Blade, who has fastest lap, and only 2 classified retirements, Cam Tizzle, and our first retirement of the race, Airborne Tiger. Well, this hasn't quite been the most interesting race that we've had on the AM1 schedule, but you get this every now and then, sort of reminds you that this is indeed Formula One. You know, every so often you do get a fairly boring race where there wasn't a great deal of action. So, yeah, I reckon you'd like points too, Kit and Petter. I reckon we all like points. And it was an okay race here at Silverstone. Definitely had its moments. It kicked off with something. It definitely kicked off with something. A lot of drivers having moments through Village and the Loop. It was really unfortunate that the camera angles I had were so zoomed in, we couldn't really get a full sort of look at what happened through those two corners. But yeah, it all kicked off at the start, and afterwards we only had one virtual safety car period thanks to Cam's incident down the Wellington Straight. But other than that, it was a pretty tidy race. And yeah, just one of those days. Yeah, I reckon a lot of people didn't have any grip at the start. Tyres can be very tricky to get up to temperature, especially the hard tyre. And if you're starting on the hard tyre, yeah, not fun. Yeah, a few drivers did drop it, so you did better than a couple of drivers when it comes to losing the car. So credit to you on that, Peter. And credit as well to the top 3 finishers for today's race. Barmer, Vermouth, and race winner Arta Mello. But I think, chat, that will wrap everything up here for this week of racing on Contest for Speed. But, yeah, and I think with everything said and done, it's time for us to end the stream. I've been Lane Everingham. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next week for round 9 of the AM1 Championship at the legendary Circuit de Monaco for the historic Monaco Grand Prix. Oh boy, next week is gonna be a doozy. But until then, it's goodbye.